Hey, what's happening? We're back. I'm back. It's Sunday night, and I've been sidelined by some alien space virus. And I apologize for being late. I was trying to find the right image. I started to look for an image. I don't know, about 8:05. I'm like, okay, I just have to find a good image. Excuse me, I'm having a little bit of a burp. Um, so I'm in a Bowie mood. I'm really in a Bowie mood tonight, and I was trying to find the right fucking Bowie picture to put in the background. Now, this is, I guess, a representation of Space Oddity. You can see that he's got a guitar there, right? Major Tom's got a guitar. So I thought, well, this is pretty cool. I know a lot of people are not into the whole space thing, and that's okay. We're into inner space. That much I think we can agree on. And outer space is a topic to be discussed, dissected, uh, disseminated, dismissed, however you feel about it. But astrology is real. Astrology is real shit. So thank you for being here. We're going to let some people know that we're streaming live. I don't know how long I can go tonight because I got walloped pretty good. Now, it's not the COVID thing, so don't worry about that. I didn't have all the fluid buildup and just incredible aches and the headache that won't go away. I mean, I didn't have like any of that stuff. So what happens with me is I push really, really hard. And I think the last time that I was detoxifying was November of 2019, which felt a lot like COVID. Because I was experiencing things that I never experienced before, just in terms of symptoms. Very strange. November, California. A lot of people were coming down. Randy just put up our talk on YouTube, and I don't know if he talks about it inside the talk or he talks about it on the Patreon side. I think it's in the 1 hour talk. Randy almost fucking died. He was really, really, really sick, and I don't think any of us really knew what he was up against or what some people would be up against. And, Randy's another person who just, drives himself really, really hard. So eventually it's going to catch up to you. Now, I eat well and I exercise mostly. I've had a hard time getting to the gym lately because I'm so backlogged on work, which I really need to do. But I usually make time to go to the gym. I eat well. Sleep has been always a kind of a point of contention. I should probably sleep more, but I think Wednesday was when I was starting to really, I was getting that little sore throat thing, feeling a little achy. So I think I went to bed fairly early. I didn't feel terrible on Wednesday. Thursday morning, I was not feeling it. I was definitely, in fact, I had an appointment that I had to cancel on Wednesday. And then I had a reading I had to eventually move to today. In fact, I had to cancel the appointment twice because on Thursday morning, I could barely get out of bed. And it wasn't like, again, I didn't have a ton of aches and pains. I didn't have any fluid in my lungs. I wasn't coughing and hacking, and I could smell, I could taste. So it wasn't like I had these classic sort of COVID symptoms. But what I had was like an extremely inflamed throat. Like I couldn't even swallow. I think I had like strep throat. And then I was just dog ass tired. And I think from Wednesday night until Friday afternoon, I basically I slept all day Thursday. I slept all day Thursday. I slept all Thursday night, and I slept most of Friday. So if you go back and look at, so Wednesday night, I don't know, maybe I got 9 hours sleep. And then from Thursday morning to Friday morning, that's 24 hours. So that's 33 hours. And then Friday, I think I slept another 7 hours. So I probably slept about 40 hours between Wednesday and Friday. I mean, that was a lot. And I hadn't slept that much in a long time. And sometimes these things just happen. I will just push it. And then I hit the wall. And, I've been doing this fairly intensely since the old vid started. And I remember it was like I got the clarion call. Are you coming up here? Are you gonna come here? I'm sure your fans are gonna be very happy to see you. And I remember, like, okay. And I had gotten sort of ramped up ahead of time. Like, I'd stopped drinking. Like, I knew something was coming. I stopped drinking. I was going to the gym. I'm like, fuck, man, I got to get my fucking A game on, or something big's happening. Right. We got the Saturn Pluto conjunction. Like, I got to get my mind right. So I did. And then it was like, okay, I'm on every day. I'm going to do this thing. And part of it has been from my own therapy, honestly. Another part of it is a sense of mission, because it feels like a sense of mission. And the other part is just urgency. It's like, what are you going to do now? What are we doing now? How are we going to keep the troops in the game? So I decided to take that on, and whether it's through astrology or interviews or my daily podcast. And by the way, that's not going to stop just because I'm kind of reviewing this. It's Mercury retrograde. That's not going to stop. But, I felt like there were certain things that I needed to do, and that, we all have gifts. And I don't have like outstanding gifts. Like, I'm not a great illustrator. Some people have great gifts of illustration, which I really admire. Some people are tremendous musicians, and they can make beautiful music, which I really admire. Some people are great mathematicians, and they can put together programs and codes. Other people are fantastic with their hands, and they can build things. And I mean, these are all like real, pretty tangible skills. And I do a little bit of everything, but I thought to myself, well, I got to maximize what I can do. So what can I do? Well, number one, I could keep people abreast of what's going on. Number two, try to disassemble the reality that we're supposedly in, so that people could understand where we are with less fear. Okay. And I'm pretty good at that. And then I'm pretty good at making people laugh, getting people to laugh. I like to laugh too. So, and then also trying to kind of wrap our arms around where all this is going, and using various systems in order to interpret where our path is headed. And then, of course, bringing other people on and sharing their gifts with us as well. So I thought, this is what I'll do. These are the things that I can do. And that's what I've done. In the meantime, I've been doing a lot of readings, and I'm really backed up. And the last week, I haven't even cracked my computer open, because I just have not been just not been in a headspace to even go in there. Although today, I did do a reading for a young woman in Canada, and I'm always very impressed and encouraged by a lot of the young people that I run across who are really committed to the truth and wanting to get underneath the things in their lives to make a change and do something that's going to be better for them. And I had a session today with this young woman who was just like, just ready, you know, she's ready to do something in a positive way for herself. And that's always rewarding, you know, to be able to be like a catalyst or a guide, or even just lend some encouragement to somebody who's a little on the skittish side, or they're a little afraid. And so that's another role that I've been playing. And I don't mind it. I think it's a good role. I'll tell you what's hard though. I'll tell you what's hard in this role. We'll get into some astrology in a second. I'm just doing a Mercury retrograde kind of recollection thing in my head, right? I'll tell you what's hard is when there are people who are actually really gifted, really talented, really sensitive, and pretty aware people, and they're stuck. That's hard. Those are the hardest people, because those people, they fall into a couple different categories, different camps. There's one camp that believes that they're not stuck, and they are. And when you nudge them a little bit and tell them that they're stuck, they don't like it. They're just not into it because they have a lot of justifications as to why they're not stuck. Those are the hardest ones. They're very hard. To get to them, you got to crack down about 3 or 4 layers. And even then, it's not always easy for them to move beyond justification. I think they're the hardest people to initiate through change, because in their mind, whatever's going on for them is a byproduct of something that they can do nothing about. And as a result of that, they're just going to be on the hamster wheel of dharma, or hamster wheel of samsara. Until something really fucking dramatic happens. And even in those cases, sometimes something really fucking dramatic happens and doesn't change them. Those are the hardest people to work with. And it's not because they're smart. In fact, sometimes they're too smart, and sometimes they're too self-aware. That can be a real problem, because they have a lot of different layers and different shields to keep the illusion alive that their pain and their inertia is real and warranted and justified. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. So still, it's like, you want to go move through this? Okay, well, let's move through it. The other person who is very difficult to deal with is the one who has great fear, great fear. And that their fear is the thing that paralyzes them. And by the way, the two types aren't that far apart. They're actually closer than you might think. The first one might have a lot of bravado and a lot of self-awareness and theoretical self-awareness, but it's still being driven by some kind of fear, some deep-seated fear around whatever that fear is. The other person understands that they have fear. They're a little easier to work with, but they're so sensitive, and they're so locked into their fear that it's almost as if you can't, like, you could draw them a map Okay, you could draw them a map and say, here's your map. If you want to get out of here, here's your map. This is how you get out of here. And they won't even see the map. And, case in point, good friend, client, love this person. I hope she really breaks out of her inertia. And we've talked numerous times and still in the same place, 3 years later. And I had really, because a lot of times, and I'm not here to like pump myself up, but I'm just giving you kind of a bird's eye view what goes on behind the scenes. So like when I'm working with somebody, I'm not just reading their chart. Okay. I'm coming from here, right? I'm coming from here. And any good astrologer will do that. Any good astrologer will get out of their head and they will connect the mind and the body, and they will work with you from this place. And when you talk about certain things, or when I talk about certain things, or I talk about certain aspects, or what I'm doing is I'm pushing. Okay, I'm pushing the energy into the context of the reading. Now, I may not be telling the person what to do. I could be offering a perspective. I could be hyping a very good transit, but it's not coming from here to here. I'm actually doing this, right? Which I do for most readings, by the way. So there's that. And then I went I was doing all these other steps, right? It's like, okay, well, you want to move. Okay, well, let's look at Jasper cartography. And I'm really like pulling out all the stops. It's like, you want to go here. Okay, well, these are all the jobs that are available here. Look at where the rents are, how much they are, right? So like, and again, I'm not here to pump myself up. I'm not sure many astrologers would like go fucking online and start looking up places, rents, right, for a particular area that the astrocartography is looking good at, and then really tapping into what that person could do. Well, so that's what I do, right? I don't care. It's just how I'm wired. So I'll go the extra mile and I'll do all that stuff. And then that came down to, well, how am I going to get there? I said, well, what do you got? What kind of vehicle do you have? And she said, well, I have such and such and such and such. And I guess at that time it was working. So then I went online and I found the right trailer hitch for this thing. And I found out how much poundage it could tow. You could probably tow about 1,250 pounds. So you take what you need and then you go, right? And so did all that. And then when you do this work, you have to let things go. That's the really important part, right? You just can't get attached, because sometimes, if you got attached to certain things, you would just go, well, why the fuck did I just do that? This person, just didn't even listen to me, and that's fine. I mean, so I had to let go of that. And then, last week I get a text from this person. They're in the same place. Like they're in the same place they were a year ago. So then I asked them, well, okay, let's play a game. How much would it cost for you to move? Because they don't like where they're living. How much would it cost for you to move? And they couldn't answer the question. I said, well, is it 5K, 10K? And then the process was, well, it just depends on the job and the benefits. And I was like, no. You take the job and the benefits out of it. You're gonna get X amount of money, and you're gonna use that money to go to a place that you might like more, because it's not as uptight with certain things, and certain people are part of certain political groups that you don't really vibe with. And it was, and again, bless her heart, she couldn't even come up with a figure, right? So these are the challenges that that are out there for people right now. And there's a lot of fear in the world. And I'm not sure if this is a heightened sense of fear because of, excuse me, how things are in the world, or it's just I think it's more normal. I think this is how this person is wired. She's a lovely person, really lovely person, caring, compassionate, good mother. I mean, just, you couldn't say anything bad about this person. But then you get to this one area and just frozen like a rock, right? So this is the challenge of the work sometimes. So the two hardest people in terms of working with them and facilitating change are people that have a lot of layers and a lot of defenses, and they don't like you going beneath things and pointing things out and trying to. And again, I could use astrology if I wanted to, or I could just use Scorpio rising. They don't like it. And then they'll have these self-defense mechanisms that keep them from being able to listen to what you have to say. And therefore they get to hang on to their limited worldview, and then they're owned by their thought forms. We all have it, right? I've had it too. I've had it in my life too. It's taken me a long time to start to free myself, and I'm still not completely there. I got some stuff I got to work on, just like everybody else. But I used to have some issues with certain things, particularly money. That was my biggest issue. And that's been a challenging one. We're right now, we've got Venus retrograde. The nodes have changed now. We've got the South Node in Scorpio, True Node in Taurus. And by the way, like fucking clockwork, I said the Janus ritual is coming to an end and the masks are coming off. What's going on around the world? We're seeing a lot of the COVID stuff get either slowed down, stopped, or reversed. Okay. So that's important. That's important to notice, right? Because we talked about it. We talked about the Janus ritual would end in January. Here we are, it's January. And it ended almost right on the dime when the nodes changed. Is that amazing? All of a sudden, England's like, we'll let the business take care of things, but we're not going to mandate vaccine passports or no more masks. That was it. It was done. Now, that's not universal, by the way, but more and more places are starting to do that now. So we're seeing the Janus ritual begin to shut down. And there's a positive side to that. And then there's a negative side to that. The positive side to it is that if you've held out long enough, you'll be somewhat vindicated, I believe. But on the other hand, when they're done with a certain operation, that means something new is coming. And of course, we're also dealing with the blockades with the trucks coming into Mexico and Canada or the United States, because the drivers have to be vaccinated. You know what that means? I mean, that's all True Node and Taurus stuff. I mean, things are just grinding to a halt, right? Stop, not happening. No more wheels of commerce. No more Gemini. It's like, just park your ass down at the border. We're up there. That's happening now, right? So immobility is going to become more of a part of our day-to-day life with the True Node in Taurus. It's the way it is. It's going to happen. It's how it's going to happen. And people are not going to have liberty of movement the way they've had in the past. And that will also dovetail with things like fuel prices and gasoline. We might even see some like, some kind of ecoterrorism. We've seen that in the past. We've seen some uh, was it it was a gas line. It was a gas line going through Tennessee that got hacked. That was, I think it was a project or unit 8200. They just shut it down because they basically control all the codes, right? So we could see stuff like that more that easily. And this adds to the crisis. So as we move out of the Janus ritual, which, I mean, technically we are, I mean, it's done, it's over. There's new things on the horizon that we're going to have to deal with, and it's going to get very interesting. And I really do feel like it's going to have a lot to do with supply chain, food, inflation. Of course, crypto is just taking a beating, and I think that'll reach like a basement level, and then I think it'll go back up. Are we going to see the crazy crypto numbers that we used to see 3 years ago? I don't think so. But if the economy does have an issue by the end of 2022, then I think we'll see some interesting numbers with cryptocurrency in terms of reflecting either inflation or the start of a new national digital currency, which a lot of countries are talking about. Mexico, I think, has one planned for 2024 rollout. So this is a big deal, right? This is a really big deal because the end of money is coming, which means the end of transacting is coming, and at least transacting the way that we've transacted before. So you need to figure that out. You have to understand that, and you could have a lot of prep and a lot of prep and supplies. That stuff's going to run out eventually. I mean, if we're engaged in some kind of epic struggle with these archonic forces that are really focused on eliminating large numbers of the population and putting certain groups in power that are incompetent and more than willing to carry out whatever orders are given to them, you have to understand that they have unlimited resources, completely unlimited resources. So they won't run out of food. They won't run out of water. And if they need fuel, of course, they'll have it. But that doesn't mean that the rest of us will. So again, I think you have to be really aware. And now we're into Aquarius season, and you need to start thinking about who you're going to be around. This is the time, right? You got to start thinking about who you're going to be around and where you're going with your life, your intention, what kind of things that you're going to create value from, because this is going to be a very intense transitionary period. They put the kill switch into these cars now. I mean, it's just going to be a nightmare in terms of transportation. We know that's going to happen. We got Mercury retrograde. We'll see more of that through Mercury retrograde. But you need to figure out pretty quick, like, what you're going to be doing in terms of living, growing, trading, bartering. So we've started that process, and we've been looking at land for the last couple of weeks. And boy, we're really behind on the land thing here. It's just nuts. If you wanted to buy land in Texas, I'd say 2018 was probably like your outlier year. 2019 you might have been able to get some decent things, but by the time the real savvy people knew in 2019 what was coming, and that's when they started to move. And now where I live here in the Hill Country, I mean, unless you can afford, I don't know, a $2.5 million property and 20% down, you're probably not going to find a hell of a lot that's going to be really worthwhile. I mean, all these properties are just getting bought up. You go online and you look at them, and it's like blip, 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 blip. So this is it doesn't mean you can't find places if that's what you're interested in. You just have to get really creative and find the places where you can find a place that other people are not necessarily climbing all over each other. So, I think that what we're going to do is we're going to try and find something that maybe has about 30, 35 acres. And we have some areas that we're looking at. And again, kind of limited resources. But the other thing is that I don't think anybody should do this alone, right? Like you shouldn't just say, okay, well, it's just going to be me and you, and we're going to homestead this thing. And I have no interest in that because number one, I don't have the requisite skills to do all those things. I'm good at some things, but I'm no fucking, range cowboy. I grew up in California. Right. So, but there are people that do have some skills. And so I'm at, if you're interested, right, because, I think the ideal sort of group is probably like maybe 2 to 3 couples. Then you want even numbers. I think that's really important when you have a community. You want even numbers. You don't want odd numbers. That's really important. Number one, even numbers, they're even. Things even out. Like you get 6 legs on a table and it stands up. You got a table with 5 legs, and what happens? And that fifth person sometimes can feel like, oh wow, they're really tight with so and so and so, and now you're in a fucking survivor kind of situation, which you really don't want. So if you're going to start a community, here we go. We're talking about Aquarius. You want pairs, either 2 couples or 3 couples, right? 2 or 3. 3 is probably a good number. Like 6, you get the right property, the right 6 people. 6 is a great number numerologically. 2020, excuse me, 2022 is a 6th year. So it supports, starting community. And if you're not doing it, you better get to it. You better get to it fast because that window is closing. And even if you somehow manage to, gather your forces and gather your people, like there's, we're living under FEMA right now. I mean, we're really living under FEMA control, and which is not very good because with FEMA, they can take everything. And when Trump did that executive order, he activated FEMA. And it's the FEMA that Jimmy Carter, in fact, I have the FEMA charts. We can look at those tonight. The Jimmy Carter FEMA, and it's like really bad. The things that, I mean, they can do anything. They can relocate you. They can put you in quarantine places. They can take your property. They can put other people in your property. I mean, they can seize your assets. I mean, there's nothing that they cannot do under a state of emergency. Guess what? We're under a state of emergency. So can they do those things right now? Quite possible. So the one thing that if you're somebody who lives in a state like, say, I don't know, Texas or Tennessee, Florida, you got to get your governor to fucking unplug from their state of emergency. That's really important because it's through that state of emergency that it links them up to FEMA, and they're able to get all this government money. So it's sort of like this drip line, right? So if you want to stop FEMA, because all these states have declared, not one state has said, hey, we're done. Thanks. It's been fun. It's been real fun. We're good. Not one state has done it because they're getting government money. But if they did, it would help push back on some of the FEMA standards or the FEMA requirements so even if you get a place, right. I'm just being honest. There's no guarantee that they're going to let you even fucking stay there. Right. So then you got to figure out, how you can indemnify yourself against something like that. And that's where you get into natural law and trusts and things that you could potentially bulletproof your relationship with your land. And it's kind of like, sorry, even with FEMA, your jurisdiction doesn't work here because we've declared X, Y, and Z, right? I mean, and there are people that do that. But I also know that there are a lot of, I have a really good client who worked her ass off, and she got her, I think she retrieved her name, her status. She did all the right things. And then something happened with the licenses, and they're doing this like this real ID thing or something like that. And by doing this, it's actually circumnavigating some of this work that they've done in order to not have their status as being compromised. And I remember she sent me this email, and she reached out to her teacher, who's really helped her and guided her and got her to be in some interesting places with this material. And he's like, I got to take a look at this, right? So we're always evolving during this time, but we're in this Aquarian phase. So this is a really, really good time to start thinking about these things, to start thinking about how the Aquarian energy can play a role in your life. So what do we know about Aquarian energy? Well, number one, it's group oriented. That's clear. We know that, right? Number two, Aquarian energy is pretty innovative. It's innovative energy. And when it's going in the right direction, it is innovative. The other thing about Aquarian energy is that, generally speaking, it has some kind of a hope or a spirit for the future. If it's not co-opted, commodified, and Klaus Schwabified, in which case it's got a very different kind of vision of the future. It's Aquarian, but it's dark Aquarian. So these are the more positive kinds of ideas around the idea of Aquarius, and that everybody is in Aquarius. Like everybody's, it's like Sly Stone. Everybody's a star. I love that song. I remember the first time I heard that song when I was a kid. I'm like, this is a fucking great song. I was 9 years old, and it had to do with his voice and just this idea that everybody's a star. And it was just, it really got me. I'm like, yeah, that's true. We all are, right? And it's one thing about Sly. It was really beautiful. I mean, Sly got it. You looked at his band, and it was total Aquarian band. I mean, you had you had a white drummer and Cynthia, the black horn player, and Larry Graham, and I mean, it was Sly Stone was really, I think, an important figure and does not get enough credit for his contribution to music and culture. I mean, he brought people together. He really brought them together, and he got a little bitter. And I think the drugs had something to do with it. But generally, Sly was really very positive, really, really positive. So that's the other thing with Aquarius is everybody's a star, and you get to figure out where your star power connects in with the light bright grid. Remember light bright? There, I never had a light bright, but there was something about a light bright that I appreciated. I appreciated the light bright because it was illuminated and everything. But I never had one. But that's what it is. Right? Everybody's like a little light on the light bright grid, and everybody creates their own important. Because if you take one of those little lights out in light bright grid, it's okay, not as good. You start taking out 3 or 4, and you got some real gaps in the I don't know, uh, the magenta rose or whatever, right? So that's the other thing with Aquarius is that this is a time for us where you can be fully authentic and you don't have to be vested in your ego. And in fact, the less vested in your ego you are and the more vested in your true authenticity, the better this thing works. And that's where we really find our power together. And then we support one another. And this is the new world. So, I mean, here we are. This is the first Aquarian. Well, so last year we went through Aquarius after the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. That happened. So we've gone through this once already. But it's the first Aquarian turn of this year. And well, it will be the last one too. But because now we're in this second year, really the second year of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, these Aquarian values begin to take on more resonance. They're just going to grow. They're just going to grow as we move through this next decade, and we'll also see more Saturn and more constriction and more limitation, and we'll see more Jupiter, which is the answer to that or the call to that. So, connect with people, really connect with people, and don't be alone. I mean, it's okay if you're alone. I'm alone most of the time, but this is a time where we need to reach out and connect to people. John Levi had a really touching video today, and he had a dream, and it was a bad dream, and it was about his dog. And I've never heard him like that before. Like John was crying, and he was crying about his pain and the loneliness and the sort of the abject alienation of being on this planet. It was a very powerful and not entirely easy video to watch. And I'm bringing it up because I think that, there's a call, right? There's a call to not be alone, to know that you're not and he knows this too, by the way. He's got all these people that follow him, but there's something deep down inside there. It's not his community or his Patreon supporters or whatever. It's at a soul level, right? Soul level. Like there's the soul of that guy that needs to be met by another soul in a way that is important, so that soul can finish their mission. And I feel like we're kind of there. We're kind of there, and if you have the opportunity to do that, and by all means, definitely pursue that, because we need to gather our forces. So important, really important. Isn't that right, Jasper? Isn't that right? He's like, yeah. Oh, look at you, the king. You're so damn funny. The king. All right. I've been ranting for a while. Let's see who we have here. Let's see who we got. Let's see. We got Wendy Eater. What's going on, Wendy? Is that what we're going to do now? A Clash tune. I can't play music on YouTube. I get strikes. But if I was going to play some music tonight, it'd be David Bowie. Okay. What else do we have? We got Thomas Jordan's here, Susie Gemini, Ian Barber. Respect the people who can read music. I'm telling you, man. W.C. Ray, you're on vacation, period, brother. Vacation 4 times a year. You are on vacation. You are living the life, Mr. Sagittarius. There's Bliss Lee. You have the gift of gab. Yes. It's the Irish in me. Let's see, what else do we have here? Let's see, Long Star 117. Bring Benito on as a guest. Yeah, he should come on as a guest. I'll bring him on one of these days. That'd be fun. Benito's a trip, man. I need a good Scorpio transit. I'll bring him on the Scorpio moon. I'll let the shadow man come out. Let's see, who else do we have here? Any news from Lawrence? David the Leo King? Is that what we're talking about? Let's see. Oh, I got an algal commercial I want to show you guys tonight. Let's see what else we have. Cat bath in progress. He's always. Gen Z is going to save us all. Gen Z, man, fucking I don't think they're underrated. I think Gen Z are rock stars. They're rock stars. All right, so I got a Gen Z story. So there are these. I have a friend that lives here. A good kid, man. He's another Gen Z kid. I love it. He and his brother are so fucking talented. I mean, again, like they can do anything. Art, music, soccer. I mean, it's like stupid talent for two brothers, and they love each other, and there's no competition, which is great. So I did a reading for one of them, probably about, I don't know, maybe about a month ago. And it's not the first one. I think I've done about 4 or 5. And he showed me a chart of this gal that he's seen. So I actually showed you guys that chart. It was that Sun-Neptune conjunction right in the midheaven. I'm like, whoa, that's a really interesting chart, right? So I got a text message a few days later, and her and her friend want to know more about astrology. And so they're like juniors in high school, okay? And I'm like, I got to be really, really careful here. Really careful, because this is a very religious town. And if I have, some sort of Svengali influence over 2 17-year-old girls that want to learn astrology, like that could get weird, really weird. And especially because one of them, her parents are super religious. So I sent them a chart and then a natal report. And I said, this is about the best I can do right now. And then one of them said, well, we really want to learn more. I said, okay, you're pretty mature. So I'm going to tell you what's up. Like, I was called a cult leader and a Satanist by people in your town. Okay? I don't want to have to deal with that. So, if you get a sign off from your parents, I'll work with you. So one of them could, but then apparently, and I've seen their birth charts. They both turn 18 this weekend, so there's really nothing they can do, because they're adults, right? They're adults. So I'm going to work with these two Gen Z girls, and so it'll be at my friend has an acupuncture office in town, and I'm very clear about like boundaries with people. I remember when I was teaching Heather Eland astrology. I always made sure that we met at Whole Foods in Austin because I wanted her to feel comfortable, inside, in a public place. Plus, it was kind of closer to where she lived, and it was just important for me to have that situation so that there wouldn't be anything that would come up. Not that I'd want there, not that I'm looking to do anything, but sometimes you never know. I mean, sometimes there could be misinterpretations, and so but by being in public, we solved a lot of that, and so that's where I taught Heather astrology was in Whole Foods in Austin. So I'm going to be able to do that at my friend's acupuncture office for I think it's like one day. I think next week or something. And we'll get it done. And the good thing is that they're both 18, kind of supervised, and that's it, right? But again, Gen Z kids and really wanting to understand the nuances of their charts. So to me, that's a really good sign. Really good sign. Okay, who else do we have? Winter storm, Jasper. Are you serious? Is there a Jasper winter storm? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? No, yeah. You're about as far from a winter storm as Jamaica is. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Hey, Carol, I owe you a call. Um, so who are we talking about, Lawrence? Are we talking about David, the Leo King? Is that who we're talking about? He's just taking a break. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I'm getting there. It's easier for me to it's easier for I'm better when I actually work. If I don't work, then I just feel like crap. Let's see. What else do we have here? Bravado is hiding fear. Yes, that's true. Absolutely. Joan is in the house. The lovely and talented one. That's right. I got Saturn and Cap. You've been stuck. Saturn and Cap is there's Mary Sue. I'm here. I'm okay, Mary Sue. Good to see you. Good to see you, Mary Sue. You know I love you. You can always give the map when someone chooses is their own. You just have to let go, and they'll do what they need to do when they're ready. Right? They'll do they'll do what they need to do when they're ready. Look, I can talk about certain things here on the show, but the two hardest people are people that are entrenched. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. It's the way it is. And I'm not naming any names. Period. End of story. Okay. Yeah, I'm the 2-4 planar projector. That's right. Gotta let it go. Let's see. What else do we have here? We got Claire, practical healer, and who else? Laura Guerin. Hi, Laura. There's Thor, Christine Mose. We can't forget the lesson. The ritual exposed a good 90% of humanity is off its freaking rocker. Well, they certainly push the ones that are close to their rocker right to the edge, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Dr. Duke is here. Morale is down. Yep. Hey, there's Jolie. Hi, Jolie. Good to see you. Let's see, who else do we have? You know, Christine, I'm not that interested in Missouri. We're looking at some new territory here in Texas. We're going to try to explore here. Bandera is dangerous, Susan. I'll tell you why Bandera is dangerous. Number one, it is way too fucking close to the border. Way too close to the border. And the other thing with Bandera is that they got a big meth group there. Like a lot of the meth from Mexico comes up through Bandera. I wouldn't live in Bandera. So, all right, why don't we do this? Let's do a little prayer, right? We'll do a prayer, and this is for all the people that are. This is for all the people that think they're stuck. For all the people that think they're stuck. And remember, you can become unstuck in a moment. And a lot of it has to do with your perception and your ability to change your mindset. And I know it sounds really new agey, but it's true. And my father used to tell me this when I was a kid, and I didn't fucking get it. He would say, there is no problem. And I was that person. I was like, what do you mean there's no problem? I'd go through all this shit in my head, right? I go through all this shit in my head. And after I would tell him all the issues and all the problems, he'd still say, there's no problem. Once you understand that, then everything changes. And it took me a really long time to like understand that. A really long time, because I could hold on to a lot of stuff. It's, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. And, I did, this stupid, like even now, and I'm just being really upfront, right? Because I've talked about some people who have had some vulnerable moments. I'll give you some of mine. I look at where I am just in terms of my finances and, where I'd like to be. And sometimes I just like, man, I'm just not prepared. I am just not prepared. It's not like that I'm poor or anything. I'm not poor, but I'm also not at that point where it's like, hey, I could have been in a place where I was really very proactive, had a plan, had an idea, and worked to have some resources so they could be available in the last couple of years. That's on me, right? That is on me. And I was going through, my shit during that time. And we all go through our shit. This is the way it is. Okay. And I'm just being honest. I'll be honest with my shit here. And for me, the hardest thing for me to do, really since 2010, was for me to drop my kid off at at his mom's house. I mean, it would tear me up. It would tear me up. And I would drive home, and the first thing I would do is I'd stop at a bar. And that's what I did, right? So I'm not, I'm not going to just, talk about other people and their issues and their dynamics, I'm going to throw myself out there. Like I went through this from like 2010 until like 2018. And really, and even like the height being like 2016 when I was living in Austin. So for 10 years, I would always pass this place on my way home, whether it was Jack Allen's or whether it was, the Hotel Mac. And, I'd have 3 or 4 drinks. And that was just after dropping him off. There were a few other times where it's like, well, fuck, man, I'm bored. And I would still be dealing with issues that I hadn't really dealt with. So it was a lot easier for me to just go and have a few drinks and, meet some people and be the life of the party and, do all that shit. Right. And that went on for a long time. And it really impeded my progress. So even myself, right, I had to like look at certain things. And at some point I'm like, this has to go. It has to go. Had I not been doing that, I probably could have been more focused and, I could have been further along, but I was in a lot of pain, and I don't want to, first of all, I don't want to make light of somebody else's pain. Okay. Just understand that. Just understand that. I don't want to, if somebody feels like I'm making light of your pain, I'm not doing that. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to establish that there are certain elements or certain psychic hooks that we have. And I'm going to be really honest. Okay. This is the honesty part. And if you heard what I said and you took it the wrong way, we don't have a lot of time. That's the really important part. And a lot of people don't do well with pressure. I get it. Right. You can't put a gun to somebody's head and say, fucking change. It doesn't really work that way. But we don't know how much time we have right now. We really don't. I mean, they could flip this thing. We could go code red with Russia hitting Ukraine and China hitting Taiwan, and the next thing you know, we're in a very different place. Our options are limited, and it doesn't mean that you can't grow during a situation like that, but you don't want to, right? You want to be able to face your fear and then get through it and let it go, because I'm not sure how much more time we're going to be able to carry on and hold on to our stuff. I'm just being honest. So I'm trying to be encouraging, especially if you heard what I said and you're taking umbrage to it. You can make a change, but you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready for the change. And then once it's done, and you can make that change. And I had to be ready for it. I couldn't deal with the pain. It's like you say goodbye to your kid and you go home to an empty apartment and, well, gee, I'm really not ready to do that yet. So anyway, I probably could have saved up a down payment from all the fucking, alcohol I bought during that time. So it is what it is, right? So we're all working on things. We're all working on, and everybody who is dealing with their fear, I'm encouraging you to face it and go through it. Okay. And there's no condemnation, just face it and go through it. And guess what? Here's the other part, is that we support you. Believe it or not, you're supported. And this is a thing that I've often thought about, like, how much support does it take? Right? How much support does it take for one person to reach a critical mass so that they can make a change? How much support does it take? Is it just one person really believing in them? Is it 500? Is it themselves? I don't know the answer to that. But I can guarantee you that there are a lot of people in Chatlandia, if you sat down and talked, they would support you, right? If you were going through something, they would support you. What they wouldn't support is you staying in your pattern. That's what they would not support. They would not support. And I would hope they wouldn't support that, because I wouldn't support it either. So a prayer to everybody out there who is going through deep and catalytic change and are ready to let it go. In the famous words of my late father, there's no problem. Okay, let's look at, I want to look at this chart. I brought this chart up here. This was, Jimmy Carter was the guy who did FEMA, right? He's the one that created FEMA. And there are two FEMA charts that Jimmy Carter created. Well, he didn't create them, but FEMA gets passed in two phases. One is like, okay, here it is. This is this new group, and these are the basic, sort of the basic role and function it will play during a disaster. There's a chart for that. So I'm gonna bring this chart up. Okay, so FEMA was signed into effect on April 1st, 1979. So the first thing you need to know about this is that this is Jimmy Carter's last year as president, and his presidency is an outright, utter disaster, total fucking disaster. Can't do anything right, prioritizes the wrong things, fires a bunch of CIA agents, has to deal with Reagan and Bush, and an overthrow of the Iranian government, because the Shah of Iran wanted more, he wanted to nationalize the oil, and they were like, fuck that. So Carter had some real issues, and he also had inflation, and he also had unemployment, which theoretically the two don't go hand in hand. Like if you have employment, so you have a lot of employment and people are working, well, that means there's more money floating around the system, which means there's more money to spend. So they're going to raise prices. So, oh, guess what? We got a lot of people buying stuff, so let's raise the prices of things. But in this instance, it was unemployment and inflation, which was almost unheard of. And I believe Carter was getting into price controls. So this is something that a lot of people don't realize. I think Nixon was getting into price controls too. And that's really not part of the, quote unquote, Keynesian economic system, right? Milton Friedman economic system. Keynes, I think he probably used some price controls. So here's the FEMA 1. We're going to call this FEMA 1. Automatically, it's Aries. So when we think of Aries, we think of first responders, military, firefighters, all those kinds of Aries things, which really falls under the auspices of FEMA, right? I mean, it's all about emergency, right? It's an emergency. So Aries is one of these planets that jumps into action. And then we have all these other planets here also in Aries. So we have, let's see, no, these are in Pisces, right? Okay, we got Mercury, Mars, and Vesta, and then we have the South Node, and then we have Ceres and Venus. Like all this Pisces energy, which is kind of interesting, because when we think of FEMA, we think of things like hurricanes, tsunamis, floods, Katrina. Those are all really Piscean kinds of things. Am I right? Yeah. But there's also something very disingenuous about FEMA, because now we have Neptune here in Sagittarius. And guess what? It's squaring Venus, it's squaring Mars, squaring Vesta. It doesn't square Venus, but these are two really important planets in that square. So what do we know about Neptune squares? They bleed things out. So all these resources that are sitting there that are supposedly supporting, this entity of FEMA, uh, there's something going on. They're getting bled out. There's no real clarity or transparency. Transparency is really big. So who knows where this money is going, what they're doing with it, right? And even with Mercury, Neptune, they're not being upfront. This is like they're not being upfront here. They're not being upfront. And if you look at the powers that are enumerated by FEMA, you get that Neptune Mars square, and completely uh, undercuts it, right? Completely. So now we have Mercury, and then we have Jupiter, right? And we have this Grand Trine right there, which is good for rapid response. We like the Grand Trine. Of course, it's in Cancer, which means that it's going to, meet the needs of the people and nurturing and caring and all that stuff. So they've established, whether they're, really conscious and aware of this, that they're bringing in the Cancerian energy, which seems to fit for FEMA, and then they're bringing the Aries energy, which is fast, surgical, tactical, all those things. But they're also not telling you really what's going on here, because there's obfuscation, and especially with Neptune and Sagittarius as it relates to law. So the other thing that they have is they've got a Sun Pluto square. Sorry, Sun Pluto opposition in this. So when you get into Sun Pluto, right, what are we talking about? We're talking about how Pluto represents resources. It represents resources, and moving Pluto up to the sun, right? It's like, okay, we're going to tap into these resources. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to have the legal language in order to do that, because that's what Libra is, right? And it's like, okay, we're going to use this Plutonian energy to power the organization itself. And I do think that the intention here, when you have Moon in Gemini, so you're dealing with dual purpose. So there's like a dual intention. There's on the one hand, it's like, okay, well, this is what we're doing, is help people with their homes and all that, lunar stuff. In Gemini, it means at least two things and maybe more. And then we have a square to Venus, and then we have this square to Saturn. So, I mean, there could be a lot of red tape, I think, with FEMA. And some people have had FEMA actually help them. I had a girlfriend a long time ago whose place got wiped out in Hawaii by a hurricane. I think it was a Niki, and she actually got money from FEMA. So I'm not going to completely badmouth it. It has helped some people, right? But with the Moon Saturn square and the Moon Venus square, it's kind of like, I think they could change their direction in any given moment with the Gemini Moon. And so contracts and agreements may not kind of work out or be carried out in the way that they're supposed to. And even with like the Moon Saturn square, I mean, I think of the Moon Saturn square, and they've got some good energy here with Libra. So I'm not going to completely badmouth this chart. I mean, if you're looking at FEMA as a kind of a functional chart, you've got Saturn in Libra, Virgo, True Node in Virgo. It's like, good. It's supposed to help. It's supposed to be service. You've got a trine to Chiron, right? So all that's really good. But with the square, there's formality, and it's a weird formality. It kind of reminds me of when Bush put Michael Brown in charge of FEMA for Katrina. Brownie, remember him? That's like the Moon Saturn square. Is like somebody who's just not really capable of, and nor should he be. He wasn't supposed to be at all. This is an interesting chart. I mean, there's some good things here. Like when it works. Remember now, this is just FEMA as an entity. It's not a bad chart, although I think that the square here is not good. It's not good. Okay. So let's look at FEMA when they come in and basically say, okay, now we know what FEMA does. Now we know what FEMA can do, which is, if I ran through the list, it'd blow your mind. And this is the chart for that. And again, I don't know the time these things are signed. I went through document after document after document after document, and I couldn't find a signing time. Okay. Could not find it. So I generally look for like 12 noon. I think politicians are kind of lazy. They sign something and they go to lunch. So here we have Cancer, which is good, right? You know, we set up with Aries, and now we have Cancer, and then we have all this big stellium in Leo, Mercury, Jupiter, going all the way. There's that Saturn true note again in Virgo, and what's really interesting is that, you know, that was on April 1st, and here we are on July 20th, and look where the moon is. It's back in Gemini. Isn't that weird? I mean, it's sort of like, what are the odds that they would have this Gemini moon again? Because that's where it was when they set the whole damn thing up. And now you've got a moon Mars conjunction, which is aggressive. Like, that's really aggressive. And then when you look at the sort of what they can do with FEMA, that's what you see. You see the moon Mars square. It's fast, it's aggressive. Gemini doesn't have a lot of feeling, not much feeling, right? It's like, okay, well, we'll pretend to feel, but we're really not going to feel all that much. So I think that this is really the big game changer right here, right there. That's what allows them to do things very, very quickly. Now, again, this is the ninth house, so we're dealing with law, and we're dealing with mandates, things like that. And we have Pluto also. You know, again, I'm just using 12 noon. Pluto in the first house. And what do we have? We've got a Pluto Venus square right there, right? Pluto Venus. And again, we're dealing with resources. Now, this is an important aspect, because this is where they can snatch your resources. This is Venus Pluto square right here. And it's kind of like with Venus in Cancer. Well, we just need these things. Well, why? Well, because we do. You know, the country's under a state of emergency. It's right there. Bang. Right. And it's like, what can I do about it? Well, you know, you can try and get it back later. So to me, this chart is the chart that really gets into the kind of hard nuts and bolts when you look at what FEMA can do. And you can see it right there with Moon Mars. Just boom, it goes, it happens, right? It acts. There's not a lot of feeling around it. And even with Neptune down here, right, there can be a lot of deception with Neptune, and Neptune deceiving kind of the motivation of everything, right? Boom. Oh yeah, well, we're doing this because, you know, we have to, you know, reallocate those resources. That's what Neptune would basically represent. And then we have a Saturn square going on with Moon and Mars as well. So you get into Saturn squares, and it's like you're dealing with authority, and it's hard. I mean, so this is a tricky chart. It is a very, very tricky chart. And even with Mercury, you're dealing with like Mercury and Jupiter. Those are like, in Leo, those are like proclamations. You know, it's like, it's a very proclamatory, like, this is what happens, right? This is what happens. This is how you do it. This is how it's done. So this is a tricky chart. It's kind of where we are now. You know, this is when Trump declared a state of emergency, FEMA took over. They took over. They are running the country still. Biden has not removed that executive order that came up on March 13th and on April 13th. So this is a bit problematic, as they say. And what are we looking at in terms of the kind of the big, what could really ping this thing? I'm thinking probably Uranus right here, right? Transiting Uranus, getting into that conjunction with Taurus, which is land, money, resources, eighth house, and then boom, this Uranus opposition. So, God, I hope it doesn't have. I really don't like. You don't want FEMA to kick in any kind of big way, because if it does, we will not we will not be even remotely close to the shadow of the country we've become. You don't want it. You just don't want it. That's why I think if you can talk to your state rep, you might be able to change something with like your own. But I think that's a pipe dream too. Greg Abbott's not going to. He's not going to pull that back. And then we have a Neptune Saturn opposition right there. But I think this is the big one, and it's getting very close. It's getting very close. And so, what could trigger something like this? Well, you could have a money crash, which is possible. You could also have, what else? Something seismic, right? And all of a sudden, FEMA kicks in, and and even if you're prepared, right? Like if you're prepared and you're like, no, we're good, we're good. I mean, they can take your food. They can take your food. They can take your water. They can seize assets. They can do anything. It's the most pernicious executive order that has ever been enacted. Trust me. And this was Jimmy Carter. And so by the time 1980 would be over, he'd be done as president. But this is his shining legacy here is FEMA. Not great. Not great. I wanted to play you this really interesting commercial. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see. So we have, here we go. Here it is right here. I just saw this the other day. It premiered. Let's see if I can find the video. Premiered video. Where's the video? It premiered 5 days ago, I believe. Oh man, what you guys are pussies. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it. Here it is, right here. They don't want the truth to come out. Let's see what we got. Oh man. All right, give me 1 second. Let's see. They do not want you or me to watch this or show this to you. I think this is it. All right. So this premiered January 15th. Now, this is in anticipation of Algol, which is at 26 Taurus. Okay, so I'm going to show you this. This is in anticipation of algal, also known as the Medusa star. This is kind of a harbinger of things to come. Here we go.
Medusa lived with a hideous curse. I mean, the whole turning people to stone thing was a bit of a buzzkill, right? So she ordered sunglasses with Prime, one-day delivery. Clever girl. People realise she's actually hilarious once you get to know her. As if... Well, he was asking for it. Prime changes everything.
See that? Right on time.
Medusa lived with a hideous curse. I mean, the whole turning people to stone thing was a bit of a buzzkill,
my friend.
Right? So she ordered sunglasses with
Let me get some sunglasses. That's a real person apparently, by the way.
People realise she's actually hilarious once you get
Out with her girls, having fun. Gets a wink.
Well, he was asking for it. Prime changes everything.
Oh, how fun. I mean, it's like, can't a bartender get a wink in? Does he have to turn to... Does he have to...
Really like to know who wrote this commercial. We're going to speed through this because it's, I don't know, stupid. But let's see what happens next.
Somebody's commenting on it.
She just killed the guy because he was asking for it.
Yeah, so this is an interesting commentary. I'm going to play this guy's commentary. Now, I'm seeing this from an astrological perspective as Uranus gets to approach algal in the Medusa star, right? So listen, this is what this guy has to say. Let's hear what he has to say.
I would really like to know who wrote this commercial.
Hideous curse.
We're going to speed through this because it's, I don't know, stupid. But let's see what happens next.
Get to know her. As if... Well, he was asking for it.
She just killed a guy because he was asking for it. Do we not promote in our society that no matter what a woman wears or how she acts or what she says, she's still not asking for it? Yet we can kill this guy who we know nothing about simply because we don't like the way that he looks. I think whoever wrote this is a little bit confused about that message.
I don't think they're confused. I don't think they're confused at all. In fact, I think it's...
Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, has announced that all COVID restrictions...
Oh, God, Russell Brand. I think they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, right? So that's just... So the true node is at what, 29 Taurus. So it's just 3 degrees away from algal. And there's that commercial, getting you ready. What does it mean? Are people going to be shocked? And are they going to turn to stone over the events of the coming days? That's kind of like nuclear bomb shit, right? People just get like frozen into stone. It's very odd. I think the timing of the commercial is very odd. Like, they didn't come up with it last year. They could have. They didn't come up with it 6 months ago. They could have. But here we are, just a mere 3 degrees away from algal, and here comes the Medusa commercial, turning one person to stone who she really didn't want to turn to stone. But hey, you know, it is what it is. We'll use Amazon to get some cool glasses. But then you got a guy who goes to flirt, and for whatever reason, she's going to be the enforcer. I mean, there's just so much wrong about that commercial in general. I mean, so the other thing too is that Medusa is the Hydra. And when we think of the Hydra, we think of like BlackRock as the Hydra, or we think of Vanguard as the Hydra, or we think of Blackstone. Those are very Hydra-like entities with all these different serpentine heads and connections. So, what does that mean? Are they revealing themselves as well? Is that what's happening now? See, that's like that's to me, this is like the Janus ritual and the mask coming off. And they're showing you now. They're showing you like the face of the Hydra. And doesn't matter if you're sort of a charming Goomba who's a bartender. And by the way, who's going to fix their fucking drinks now? It's like they've just turned their bartender to stone. And that's smart. That's really fucking smart. So they're going to go back there and start mixing their drinks? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. And then the other poor woman who's just kind of standing there, and the other one's just like, sorry, honey, you just happen to be in the way. Oh, let me use your cell phone. Right? It's very interesting. It's sort of like the unintended and the intended consequences of power. And neither of them are very good. The unintended consequence is the woman who just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then the intended consequence is the guy who's he's not going to be able to make their drinks now. And then what's going to happen? Medusa is going to start turning everybody into fucking stone people. She'll be pissed off because she doesn't have anybody to make her special trophy cocktail. So anyway, I just wanted to show that to you. I saw that the other day. I'm like, wow, we're so close to Algol coming. And here it is. They're showing us. They are showing us. And there's also this other thing with Medusa is that reptilian. It's reptilian. And there's a reptilian component. I don't know where I am with the reptilian stuff. I think they're probably real. I think they probably live inside the earth. I don't think they come from Alpha Draconis, although some people think they do. I think they're inside the earth. I think they've been here for a long time. So that's another component of this, right? Are we going to see more of these characters with the mask off like that? It's quite possible. Very possible. Now, there's also some positive manifestations of Algol, but we just saw a couple negative ones, actually. All right, I'm going to bring up one more chart, and then I'm going to call it a night because I'm starting to fade a little bit. We got the moon in Cancer. It's just kind of dribbling away here. So tomorrow, when you wake up, the moon will be in crazy Gemini, and you get to deal with a lot of crazy Gemini stuff, right? Which is not bad. I like Gemini. I just think it's weird that with both of those FEMA charts, the moon was in Gemini. And the second one, you got that Moon-Mars conjunction, which is like very intense. Okay. Here's a chart that I was really interested in. And let me just show you the guy. Because the guy's a man, right? He's a freaking man. Let me show you the guy I'm talking about. It's Otis Redding. I remember as a kid listening to Dock of the Bay for the very first time. I was 9 years old, and might have been younger than that. When did Otis Redding die? I think he died in 68. And I remember listening to that song, and it reminded me of when we would pass the Candlestick Park, which is where the Giants would play. And the bay went right up to the freeway there. And I always thought that that's what Otis Redding was talking about, was like, well, first of all, I thought he was talking about the bay, which he was, by the way. But I thought I didn't really know any better. I just knew that I saw people fishing there. So I thought he was talking about that, but I loved that song. It was like, it brought up a lot of different feelings for me. Loneliness, but also being okay with one's lot in life. And like, man, I got no worries. I got no problems. I'm sitting here in the dock of the bay. Like, life could be a lot worse. And he wrote that song actually when he was staying on a houseboat in Sausalito. And I'm trying to figure out whose houseboat he was on. There was this one famous houseboat in Sausalito. It was called the Varda. And I used to go to parties on this houseboat. And it was occupied by two pretty well-known people. One was Andre Varda, who was an actor and a director. And the other was Alan Watts. Like, they both lived on this houseboat. So I used to go to parties there. And I'm wondering if that was like the most famous houseboat in Sausalito. And who knows? He could have been in anybody's, but that's where he wrote that song. And he wrote that song and recorded it like days before he died. And he died in a plane crash. And it was one of those bizarre plane crashes that happened in the 60s and 70s. And he was flying to Madison, Wisconsin. And he was really tight with a group called the Barkays. He loved them. That was like his group that he was trying to, bring up. And they were going to a show in Madison, and the plane like crashed 5 miles away from the airport in the lake there. And one guy survived. I think one of the Barkays survived. Otis Redding did not survive. But when you look at Otis Redding, I wish I could play just one of his videos, because he's such a force. This guy was, and I remember listening to that documentary. I just love this guy, right? Like, I love this song. And then I saw him for the first time on the Monterey Pop movie, a few years later after I got a little bit older. And I'm like, man, this dude is fucking dynamic. I mean, he was really dynamic. He worked his ass off like a motherfucker. And you could just tell that he was a good dude, right? He married, he saw this woman at a club one night. He laid his eyes on her and he said, "You're mine." And that's it. And boom, they got married and they started having kids. And he bought a plane so he could fly and go do as many gigs as possible and his band was Booker T and the MGs. And man, they were great. I mean, just totally great. And you just watched him, and he had this presence. He had this physical presence. He had this great voice. And when you look at him, right, let's look at a picture of Otis Redding, okay? That's Otis Redding. Otis Redding was 26 years old when he died. That is a 26-year-old man. I mean, what does that tell you about how men used to evolve and how they evolve now. That's a 26-year-old man. He didn't even make it. He was one of the to his 27th birthday. He's one of the 27s, right? And he was just a freaking force, an absolute force. 26 years old. So I decided to look at his chart. I'm like, okay, why is he such a force? You know, what made him? And he worked hard. I mean, the guy was always fucking working, always recording. He put Stax Records on the map. Right, there wouldn't have been a Stax Records in the way that it was without Otis Redding. And this is there was this plane crash, just absolutely tragic. And he had written Dock of the Bay right before he died. And there were people like, Otis, what is this? This doesn't sound like anything you've ever done. And it was almost as if he was coming to peace and coming to terms with his life. Life is really strange that way. So let's look at his chart. It's pretty interesting. Excuse me. All right, let's see what we got. Hold on. So here we go. This is from Astro Theme. And, you know, I don't think they know his actual birth time. What does it say here? It says, if you know, right? Sometimes astro.com will have it. But let's just take a look at his chart for a second. All right, so he's a Virgo, and he's got a true node in Virgo, which he's getting a lot out of his Virgo in this life, right? And now he's got Neptune here, and he has this Mercury-Neptune conjunction, and the guy can write like a really great love song. You know, I've been loving you too long, and I can't stop now. And he's got Venus and Libra. So there's something very aesthetic about Otis Redding. And he's almost like the anti-James Brown. Don't get me wrong, I like James Brown. But Otis Redding's more refined. And you can see it with Venus Mercury here. But then we have Pluto and Leo, of course. A lot of these, here's the one thing I'll say a few good things about the baby boomers. They made some of the best fucking music. Okay, there's just no doubt about it. I mean, they could write fucking love songs. They could write love songs. They were really good at love songs. And it's that Pluto and Leo. It's and now Redding's a little bit. He's not quite a full on boomer. He's what's his year? What year is he born? He's born 1941. So he's just really getting going with that Pluto and Leo. But you go a little bit, just a few years out, they're going to get Neptune and Libra. So with the boomers, you get the Neptune, Pluto sextile, and you know that's very artistic. It's very creative. It's very musical. So, and he writes just an absolutely great love song. Fantastic. And then here's his Mars and Aries. And when you watch him at Monterey Pop, people were getting up and they were leaving. I think he was the last act on, was that Friday night? And then he comes out and says, so I hear this is the love crowd. This is the love generation. And then he kicks into Shake. And man, he just lights the place on fucking fire. And that's that Mars Moon conjunction in Aries, right? Right there. Bang. The guy's a force of nature. So he's able to channel like this just intense passion. And he literally he could just move people with his energy. And fantastic. Excuse me. And here we have Uranus. So he's got Uranus in Gemini. It's retrograding, and that Uranus and Gemini generation is pretty innovative. And he has Saturn in Taurus, so he works hard. He works his ass off. And with Jupiter and Gemini, he was able to do a number of different things, wear a number of different hats, extremely versatile. It's just a very interesting, super interesting chart. Where's that moon? So we've got Mars at 23, Aries. Moon's in Taurus, my bad. I apologize. But he's still got that Mars, that very intense Mars. And he's got Moon in Taurus, which is good. It's good for money. And where is it? Moon in Taurus at 1 degree. Okay. So he's got his Moon in Taurus at 1 degree. And he's got what? Saturn and Sun trine. So there's your hardworking Virgo right there. Saturn, Sun trine. Guy works his ass off. And his Jupiter, Venus trine. Really good for money. Super good for money. Super good for songwriting. The guy's pretty blessed. He's got some fire. He's got some earth. He doesn't have a ton of water in his chart, but he bought a house with a swimming pool. That was really important to him. Not a lot of water. And when did he die? Let's see. Should tell us when he died. If you know the time, I think his wife might be still alive. His kids are still around. When did he? Here, let me go back here. Let's find out when he died. Okay. So he died on, let's see, the Big O, December 10th, 1967. God, he's only 26 years old. He's a man, though. The guy's a freaking man. 26 years old. Okay, where is he? So December 10th, 1967. Okay, we know that Pluto and Uranus were in Virgo at that time. Very interesting. So I'm betting that he was having a Pluto Sun conjunction. Let's see if we can find that out. Hold on. All right. Let's see. Oh, we're in the wrong year. But he's just one of these people that just died too soon. It's kind of like Art and Senna. Same thing. Okay, let me get back here. Okay, so 1967. That's not what I want. Sometimes shit on the internet's weird. You ever go to click on a link and then it takes you to something completely different that you are not asking to go to? Does that ever happen to you? And you keep doing it and it keeps happening. It's weird. Okay. All right. All right, here we go. So December and December 10th, 1967. Okay. No, I don't want that. There we go. Okay. All right, so we have Pluto at 24, Pluto at 22 Virgo, okay? Pluto at 22 Virgo. So it's right on his true node. So we had a Pluto true node conjunction. That's kind of interesting, right? I mean, it's kind of like, that's it. He did it. He did it. I would say he fulfilled his purpose. He was done. Pluto hit his true node, and that was it. Done. And what's interesting is he wound up being drowned by this plane crash, which is very Neptunian. There it is, right there. Pluto, 22 degrees. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll put it up here so you can see it. So this is where Pluto was, right there, right on his true node, the day he died. Now, of course, it'd been around his true node for a while. So, but it wasn't 23, it wasn't 21, it was definitely at 22. That's right, Rosie. And then what else was happening that day? December 10th. So Moon in Aries. So you had a Moon Mars conjunction. Mercury in Sag. And then Venus in Virgo. And Mars in Aquarius. And Jupiter in Virgo. So a lot of Virgo stuff going on. And Saturn was at 5 Aries. And Uranus was at 26 Virgo. So that meant that Uranus was conjunct Neptune right there. So he had a Uranus-Neptune conjunction, and he had a Pluto true node conjunction on that day. And the moon was in Aries. And I don't know what his rising sign was, so we can't try to figure out what was going on in his 8th house or his 12th house. But that's interesting. It was kind of like, you did it. You did it, Otis. And he I think Dock of the Bay sold 6 million copies. It was his biggest hit. And I just love this guy. I mean, I've been loving you too long. I can't stop now. I mean, they just don't make people like Otis Redding anymore. You know, they just don't. I mean, everything is just kind of like this fucking pale imitation of, you know, really substantial people like this dude. And it just shows you, you know, how far we've fallen in a lot of ways. It doesn't mean that we can't rise again, but it just gives you some sense as to like who these giants were. I mean, they were giants for a reason, you know, total giants for a reason. And even James Brown, who was, you know, a little sketchy, but James Brown was a pretty interesting character in his own way. And where are the great artists now? We don't really. Jason Whitlock did a show, and there's no real great artists. I mean, there's no. He thinks that the conservatives and the sort of the more political right are going to kind of retake music. I don't know. I mean, it's okay. I don't, as long as it's good. I mean, you know, if we got somebody, you know, singing about like the unanswered questions of 9/11 and, you know, Dr. Fauci and Plum Island and, you know, and singing about them in a way that is really powerful, right? I mean, this is what we really lack. I mean, we lack a people that can sing about things that are not comfortable and do it in a way where they ask hard questions. The one guy that could do that was Steve Earle, and I haven't kept up with him for a long time, but he had some gravitas and he could sing about stuff like this. So if you're a musician and you got some skills, I think there's a place for you out there. There's a lot of material to mine. And if you can do it in a way where it's not overtly political, it can be very effective because, you know, we need really, really good songs and good music to return to our lives. And it's not just political shit. I mean, you know, if you can write a love ballad, I mean, the weird thing about like the love ballad stuff, you have, who is it? What's his name? Frank Ocean or whatever, who's he just turns everything upside down. It's like, oh yeah, you're a balladeer, but what the fuck are you singing about? So it's sort of like you took a wrong turn somewhere, you know. Anyway, all right, I'm out of here. Thanks for being here tonight. Didn't really get into the chart of the moment, but we covered a lot of ground, and you know, we're in Aquarius territory. So do your best, plant your freak flag, and let it fly. I will be here tomorrow. Hopefully, it's actually good for me to do this. If I don't do this, I sit around and I feel kind of gross. So we'll be here tomorrow, and it'll be here tomorrow morning. So use your head in order to discern what's real. Your heart, to say what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. Take care. Bye for now. Love you all. Every single one of you. See you.